Our next speaker giving a talk in Strand 3 is Luciana Fernández. And Luciana is a teacher educator, academic consultant, ELT early years and literacy advisor, an ELT materials reviewer and collaborator and presenter based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She has presented and worked collaboratively with teachers and schools both locally and internationally. During Luciana's talk, we recommend watching in speaker view. And if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A box. Over to you, Luciana. Please share your screen.
Okay, hello everyone. I am really very excited to greet all of you, not from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I am actually in Spain at the moment, and I feel deeply honored to be part of this amazing web conference. And today I'm going to be talking about what it takes to teach Generation Z. I hope you make the most of this session and that you find it useful. So let's begin, if that's okay with everybody. I'm going to get started by sharing what this session is going to be about. Today, we're going to be defining Generation Z, and we're going to be highlighting main characteristics of this generation. We're going to be discussing how critical it is to rethink education in the light of the needs and demands brought into the classroom by Generation Z. And I also wish to explore classroom practices that will allow our Gen Zers to, of course, develop language through life and career skills. So if everybody can see my slides and everybody can hear me, I think we are absolutely ready to begin. So let's get started by defining Generation Z and highlight main characteristics. Now, first thing to say is that when you actually begin to do research and try to find out who Gen Zers are, you're going to find some differences when it comes to authors. For some authors, Generation Z refers to those students born between 1996 and the year 2010. For some others, we are referring to students born between 1996 and 2012. For some others, we are referring to those born between 1995 and 2015, or born between 1995 and 2010, or ages 21 and under. Now, in spite of all these differences, we will probably all agree on the fact that these are the students that we have in our classrooms. This is the generation that we are teaching today. And this session aims at stopping for a while to think who we are educating, what needs and demands they bring into the classroom, and how we can cater for those. So, having stated this, I would like to get started with a quote that I find really thought-provoking. Generations are shaped by the context in which they emerged. What do you think about this quote, people? Generations are shaped by the context in which they emerged. The time has come for all of us to stop to think for a moment, what's the context that has shaped this generation? So this is my invitation for all of you now. What context do you think has shaped this generation? And let me, as you are thinking about this, share some thoughts. This new generation is different from previous generations in some important ways, but it's quite similar to the millennial generation that came before it. Probably you are thinking about this. They have little or no memory whatsoever of the world as it existed before smartphones, all right? What else can we say about this generation? The technological context has produced a hypercognitive generation, very comfortable with collecting and cross-referencing many sources of information and with integrating virtual and offline experiences. But what else can we say about this generation? This generation feels comfortable not having only one way to be itself. Its search for authenticity generates greater freedom of expression and greater openness to understanding different kinds of people. And one of the things that I have to say I love the most about this generation is how they value self-expression and how they avoid labels. I'm reading very interesting contributions. Definitely digital learning, citizens of the world, and more to say about this generation, right? But moving on, and more to say about this generation is that they mobilize themselves for a variety of causes. I think that we are educating today a much more activist generation. They believe profoundly in the efficacy of dialogue to solve conflicts and improve the world. For this generation, the key point is not to define themselves through only one stereotype, but rather for individuals to experiment with different ways of being themselves and to shape their individual identities over time. It is a generation of self-learners. I absolutely believe in this, and they are radically inclusive. They don't distinguish between friends they meet online and the friends in the physical world. They continually flow between communities that promote their causes by exploiting the high level of mobilization technology makes possible. Now, this is the context that has shaped this generation, right? And this is a generation, and one more thing that I really like about this generation is the fact that they really stand up for causes related to identity. They are more interested than previous generations in human rights. And I think that we educators really need to consider how important it is to bring all this into the classroom. And this is what we're going to be exploring in this session. The search for truth is at the heart of this generation. And here in this next slide, you've got some main characteristics of Gen Zers. Undefined ID. Don't define yourself in only one way. Communaholic. Being radically inclusive and connecting through different truths. Dialoguers, having fewer confrontations and more dialogue. And this question of understanding different truths. Now, what else defines this generation? Being realistic and living life pragmatically. And this also has to do with unveiling the truth behind all things. So if the search for truth is at the heart of this generation, how can we cater for all this as educators? And one of the things that I truly believe in is the word that you've got on the screen right now, otherness. I think this is the word if we're going to be talking about Generation Z. Otherness, others, understanding others, working collaboratively with others, making up teams with others, respecting others, and so much more. Otherness, a very powerful word. And the question remains, how can we educators cater for otherness in our language classrooms? I hope to be giving you some ideas that you can adopt and adapt, as I always say. So we have defined Generation Z. We have highlighted some characteristics of this generation. And now we are moving on to the part in this session in which we are discussing how critical it is to rethink education in the light of these needs and demands that we have highlighted. This is a generation that really needs life and career skills to thrive in the world they live in. And by talking about life and career skills, I'm pretty sure you must have heard about this. We are talking about flexibility and adaptability. My goodness, last year, this year, and who knows next year, have proved how important it is to be flexible and adaptable, adapting to change and being flexible, initiative and self-direction. This is a generation that truly needs to manage goals and manage time. They need to know how to work independently. They need to be self-directed. And probably those students who lacked the skills I'm mentioning now are the ones who had a very hard time during lockdown, for instance, or during distance education. But we're also talking about social and cross-cultural skills. And this has to do with interacting effectively with others and working effectively in diverse teams. But we are also talking about productivity and accountability. And this has to do with students managing projects, producing results, for example. And last but not least at all, leadership and responsibility. How our students can be leaders, how they can guide and lead others, and how is it that they can be responsible for others. And as I always say, being an educator, it's not just about the subject matter that we teach. That is just half of the equation. We teachers are responsible for teaching and providing lots of opportunities for our students to develop these life and career skills. But having stated all this, I also wanted to share with you the future skills for the year 2030. We are talking about the skills that our students will need for their future workplaces, for their careers. And if you pay attention, we've got skills that probably all speakers in their presentations somehow will address. We're talking about creativity, problem solving, innovation, originality. We are talking about adaptability, being flexible, willing and able to learn new things in a world where the constant is change. We are talking about synergy, working with others for win-win-win situations. We are talking about systems thinking, seeing the bigger picture and understanding the complexity. What else are we talking about? Implementation, getting things done, achieving results. We're also talking about discernment, having good judgment, decision making. We're also talking about wisdom. And for me, a very relevant skill, uniqueness, following your passions, doing your own thinking. And if this is what our students need for their future workplaces and for their careers and for life in general, I truly believe that our classrooms need to become the rehearsal, the place where students will have the possibility to put all these skills into practice. And this is what I hope to be exploring with you through some ideas that I brought for you, that I wanted to share because I've tried them out and they work. So we have already defined who Gen Zers are. We have highlighted main characteristics of this generation. We have also discussed why is it that it is critical that we rethink education in the light of these needs and demands brought by this generation. And now we're moving on to the part in my session in which we're going to be exploring classroom practices that will allow Gensers to develop language through life and career skills. Yes, Elena, I love the uniqueness as well, just as you do. And I hope you enjoy the ideas I'm going to be sharing with you right now. So let us move on. One of the things I truly believe in as an educator is that if we really understand who Gensers are, if we really understand that we are educating a completely different generation, this is the generation for which voice, choice, and agency are everything. Self-expression. For this generation, it is absolutely important that their voice is heard, that there are possibilities for them to share their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions. It is important in given moments that they have the possibility to choose. And it's also very important that they have the possibility of being agents. So the ideas that I intend to share with you today have to do precisely with voice, choice, and agency. So let's see. I came across this amazing continuum of voice some time ago, and I just wanted to share this with you. I hope you find it as interesting as I did in that moment. As you can see, there are some very important words, so very related to the generation we are talking about today. Expression, consultation, participation, partnership, activism, and leadership. And when it comes to expression, we are talking about offering opinions, answering questions, also understanding how students learn best and creating a personal learner profile. Consultation is also about providing input and feedback and sharing how I think I learn best with my teachers, for example. Another very important keyword is participation and how students can attend activities that will provide them with the possibility to make decisions. Partnership, collaborating, all right? Collaborating with teachers and collaborating with peers and contributing to, why not, the design of lessons and projects and assignments. Activism, identifying problems and generating solutions for the problems, and also advocating for change in and outside school. And leadership, guiding groups as a leader of change, co-planning, making decisions, accepting responsibilities for the outcomes, and see how this continuum, right, moves. It's actually very interesting, and I agree. That's why I wanted to share with you, because I have decided now to share with you many activities considering the different keywords in this continuum, from expression to leadership. What do you think about that? So let's move on, because time actually does fly, right? To begin with, I would like to quote amazing Carol Reed, all right? In order to foster an open, creative mindset, teachers need to regularly provide frameworks and stimuli that encourage learners to explore, experiment, and play with ideas. This needs to be an atmosphere of mutual respect where divergent views are valued and judgment is withheld. How can we provide students with the opportunity to value and respect the ideas of others, the views of others? So I've got some ideas to suggest, and as I said before, this is my sharing with you what has worked for me, right? Now, Giving opinion activities for me are mandatory for teenagers. They like giving their opinions, and giving their opinions, it's not just about saying what they think, it's about actually justifying also their opinions. So there's a lot of thinking going on. One of my very favorites is the Think, Pen, and Share protocol. I love bringing thought-provoking questions or bringing triggers into the classroom. And I always give students the possibility to give it a thought for themselves, some thinking time. We teachers have to admit that sometimes we ask thought-provoking questions, but we rush students to come up with answers. Give them time to think, to check what's happening to them with that question you brought. And after they have done some thinking, get them to share with somebody else. So if you pay attention, the template you've got on the screen goes like, okay, what came to my mind as I was thinking about this question? And I jot down a few ideas. And now I'm going to be interacting with a peer. And this is really, really a good idea to engage students in active listening, because I've got to listen to what you're saying and you're going to listen to me. And then we're going to be deciding together what is it that we're going to be sharing with the rest of the pairs, for example, in the classroom. A protocol that really fosters interaction and really, really works. I also love, and I always have them in my classroom, I call them debate cards. And it's just as easy as thinking about debate questions that you can have on printed cards, and you can keep them in a box. And when you want to promote the debate, students just randomly choose a card. You can divide your class into groups, and there you go with, for example, all teenagers should be able to get tattoos or piercings without their parents' permission. So there you've got with a debate card, and students are sharing and responding to the card with their own thoughts, ideas, and responses, right? Or another card might go like, and healthy food should not be allowed at school. What do you think? Or students should be able to choose subjects at school. I particularly find that when the cards are related to a topic we are addressing in the classroom, or topics are topics of interest to my teenagers, they really engage in responding to these triggers. And it's an easy thing to have in the classroom. Okay, you can get them printed, you can even write them down yourself. And something that I always do with teenagers, I always give them also the chance to create their own debate cards and swap with other groups. And in that way, I am involving them a little bit more. Not only are they responding, but they are also being the ones creating the content for debate. How amazing is that? Now, one of my favorite ideas for today are chat stations. You're gonna love them, and I hope you give them a try. This is all about the teacher posting signs with discussion prompts around the classroom. This is to get students to move a little bit, so you can stick these discussion prompts on different walls in the classroom, all right? The teacher assigns the students to small groups of pairs, and then you can also even assign roles, right? So you can have the prompt reader, the discussion facilitator, the note taker, the time manager, and each group is going to be directed to a given station. The student who is responsible for reading the prompt will do, and there will be somebody guiding the discussion and managing time and jotting down discussions, all right? So it's really a very good idea. I want to show you what it looks like. This is the chat station. Okay, as you can see, you've got the reader, you've got the students, they are responding. And one of the very interesting things to say is that I always teach students the meaningful, I always give them language prompts as for how they can have meaningful conversations, right? Students can then design their own questions or quotes or whatever trigger they really want to share. And I also provide them with a worksheet to jot down their responses. I love having higher order thinking walls with questions that really provoke thinking. I'm going to be moving on to questions in a minute, I promise, right? So general open-ended questions are, what would happen if, or I wonder, or what do you think about, in what way, what would you, how can we, questions that are really, really getting students to think. So there's a very important distinction to be made here between think questions and thick questions. And some people are telling me sometimes you cannot move in the classroom. Well, if you cannot move in the classroom, you can be moving the prompts. That's not going to stop you. So we teachers are constantly asking, for example, questions about a text, which are usually thing, who, what, where, when, true, false. It's not that that doesn't matter, but there are other questions that really invite students for self-expression, like what would you change in the story, or how is this story similar or different to other stories you have read? What could have been different? What would you have done if you had been one of the characters? So thick questions are really, really something. And I always also provide students with a checklist because I also like inviting students to become the ones who generate questions. I will, if you send me an email, I will definitely share a copy of my presentation with you. Now, I want to share also with you how you can work with consultation with your students, right? And for example, if you want to find out how they feel they learn best, you can provide them with a survey like this one. I like it when teachers repeat instructions. It's helpful, not very helpful. I like it when teachers break activities down into smaller parts, and also giving students the possibility to come up with suggestions. Or students can use a brainstorming matrix. What helps you learn? Okay, what helps you remember things? Is there anything you wish the teacher could do to help you a little bit more? And it's very important that you show really your students that you are listening to them, right? That whatever they are telling you is going to help you design your lessons. You're going to consider this because you want them to learn much better. This is what we mean by consultation. And I am rounding up with participation, partnership, activism, and leadership. For me, projects are the best thing you can bring into the classroom. And that's what I do. I invite my students to engage in a variety of projects. What will I learn project? What will I create projects? Love or passion projects, or my favorite type of projects? How can I make an impact? And you will agree with me that engaging students in projects allows for collaboration, creativity, communication, and critical thinking. So I provide learners with the opportunity to be the ones who design the question that will start the project. And this is an amazing idea called the driving question Tuberic. All right, a Tuberic begins the question with how can, how do, should, could, what, who, the verb, and who will be the audience for who the project is being created. I will finish in seconds, I promise. So this is what the Tuberic looks like, okay? I also provide students with the research project graphic organizers so that they have very clear in mind what they want to research and what they want to present. I'm sorry that I'm rushing, but I've been running out of time. And when students present the project, I always ask them to do some thinking before the project. Who is your audience? Who are you presenting to? Where will you get information from? How are you going to do this? Where are you going to do this? And after, there's also some reflection. What have you done? What steps did you follow? What difficulties did you encounter? And what is it that you can do better next time? And what have you learned? Because projects really allow students to put all the skills to the test. The Gen Z's unique character calls for the creation of teaching and learning opportunities that match. Dear people, I'm sorry I exceeded time. I feel like you're going to murder me, but this is my email address. This is how you can contact me, and I would be more than happy to share with you my slides. All right. So I see that there is
Thank you so much.
There
Thank
are some
you
questions.
so much.
But
yes.
I will, I'm sorry, but there are questions regarding certificates. So if people want to write to me,
they will, yes. They have your details there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, Luciana. I think that that focus on otherness really resonates and is actually sort of linked to themes coming out of the other talks today, even though they were on different strands, and it gives us that sense, a better sense really of understanding those Gen Zers and what they need to find that voice, with lovely practical tips there at the end. So thank you very, very much for that.
No, thank you.
You're very welcome. And we'll now have a 4-minute break. So we'll see you again here shortly.